So you'll see that come up. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it right over to Kristin, and she's going to take us away the rest of the way. Thank you very much for being here. Kristin, it's all you.
Fantastic. Hi, everybody. I see some familiar faces, so it's good to see you again if we've met before. And if you are a new face to me, welcome. It's always nice to welcome new folks into the community here. My name is Kristin Robinson, as Nikki said. Together with Nikki and Gabby and one colleague who could not be with us today because she is actually teaching interpretation as we speak. We are the 4 founding members of Message Mindset. And this Skills Boost Clinic is something that we offer every month. Right now, this is just our way of giving back to the community that we love, continuing to nurture the work that we're also excited about. And so we hope that you enjoy today's clinic. Here's how the day is going to go. Nikki's already walked us through Zoom stuff. If you have Zoom questions along the way, she is our tech guru. As she said, pop that question right into the chat and she will be happy to help. We do have, if people would like transcription, live transcription into their preferred language, we are able to do that. If there is anybody who needs help with that, I'm going to ask you to put that question into the chat as well, and Gabby can help you get that feature turned on. I didn't actually ask you if you do this, but Gabby, can I ask you to be on point if people need help with the transcription? It's a nice new Zoom feature, and Gabby knows many things about it. I will simply attempt to talk slow enough that it translates well. So Nikki is our Zoom guru. Gabby is our translation guru. I will be walking us through today's dive into storytelling. Before we get there, just here's how the day will go. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. Who am I? Why am I here? And why am I talking to you about story? I'm going to talk a little bit about message mindset because our goal is for this to be a community where interpreters will come and will share ideas with one another. A rising tide raises all boats. We get stronger and better together. And then we're going to jump in. We're going to spend about 10 minutes. This is like a micro training. We are going to look at starter sticky stories. So I'm going to give you a 30-second storytelling format that you can use even when you don't have a lot of time. Maybe you're in the middle of a walking tour and it's a short stop and you've got a story, you can still use storytelling. And we're going to talk about that tool. And we're going to add on a couple of additions to that tool to really get the full juice of story's superpower, even when you have a very brief moment. And then you're going to have a chance. I have a worksheet for you to play with. You're going to have a chance to actually try and create your own 30-second story. You're going to have a chance to go into a breakout and kick those ideas around with somebody else. And then we will end with just some group discussion about, we'll just kick it open. We can talk about the exercise. We can answer questions about storytelling. We can talk about something else related to story that's really on your mind. It's kind of open forum at that point. So a little bit about me. I've been doing this work for quite a while, probably 25 years at this point. I operate a company that focuses on interpretive training and program consulting called Stage Naked, because sometimes talking about things that matter to us and we want it to matter to more people, that can be a little vulnerable. And as we say, they can feel like being on stage naked. So that's how I ended up with the company name. But I've been doing this. I started off way back. I actually started off, if you go all the way back, I started off as a theater artist. I really loved telling stories to people from the time I was a child. And then I went to college for that and I got some training and I went into that world and I thought, I don't want this to be my living. So I went back to school and I accidentally became a docent at a historic site. And that was my first exposure to the interpretive toolkit. And once I found this was it. This was everything I loved about theater. This was everything. I was also an adjunct faculty member at the local university. It was everything I loved about being a university professor with no tests to grade, and really just giving people a really wonderful experience that could still be transformative, that could still get them thinking and talking and digesting and maybe even doing differently better, stronger, faster. Like really, I thought the world is the oyster when you've got these tools. So I am an NAI certified interpretive trainer. If you're not familiar with the NAI, that's the National Association for Interpretation. In fact, one of the things that drew the four of us message mindset trainers together is we all teach a course of the NAI. It's called the Interpretive Guide Certificate class. Those used to be rearranged differently, so we call that in shorthand the CIG. And I know some of the folks in the room have taken that CIG before. In my career, it has been my privilege not only to use these tools with hundreds and hundreds of guests, I've crossed the thousands threshold, but also to work with interpreters all around the world as a mentor, as a trainer, as a recruiter and manager, helping them put these tools into practice to make their tours and their programs even better. I've also taken this work outside of the traditional heritage field. I've worked with organizations. In fact, I'll just call out one of them on the screen there. Braver Angels is not an interpretive organization. They are doing the, not so difficult task of wading into American political landscape and trying to get people that are very conservative and very liberal to learn to talk to one another again, to learn to listen to one another again. And what tools are they using? Amongst others, tools from the interpretive toolkit. And so truly this work has legs in so many different directions. I won't belabor it, but if at the end of today's look at storytelling, you are wondering, hey, could storytelling help me in this thing that's not guiding, it's not touring, but I think it might work here. By all means, please feel free to reach out to me because I love being a thought partner to people looking for ways to use this work. I do quickly want to talk about Message Mindset, the host of today's event. As I mentioned, the four of us who founded this, right now it's a hub, if you will. Our goal is to contribute trainings into the interpretive space that really aren't there presently. These sort of deeper dives into skills that are good companion skills to the NAI's CIG class. And that's a wonderful foundation. We all do still teach that work. In fact, I know Nikki can pop into the chat some links if you want to explore, the NAI classes that we teach. But also you'll see out on our Learning Hub, the things that we're starting to roll out now, which are the real passion projects that we've been talking about for a while. Things that look at storytelling, things that look at theme building, classes focused on vocal technique that can support the work we do as guides and as interpreters. So definitely keep watching the space to see the things that are coming. We do custom work. We work together online, live. I mean, it's really, there's a lot out there. So do feel free to explore and let us know if you have questions about the things that we do. And if there's any way that we can help, we will. If we're not the right people, we might know the right people. So please consider us partners and colleagues on your interpretive journey. One last thing that I will mention, just because I know it might be of interest, we do get people who have never taken the Certified Interpretive Guide through NAI. That course has been a foundational course. It's a certificate that's recognized in a lot of places. It's a preferred credential, and a sign of the times, that price is going up in July. So there is still space left in classes that are running before July. After July, I believe the course is going to cost about $200 more per person. In the scheme of things, it's still a great value. And the benefit that they've added in there is that this is now an evergreen certificate. So once you earn this, you have it forever. All right, enough about courses that are out there. Those are hopefully conversations that we can have with you another day if you are interested. Let me just make sure I'm not skipping anything, because otherwise we are going to jump into story. Oh, I did want to mention one last thing, and I will definitely come back to it at the end. These monthly clinics, we have done 2 so far. We've had Nikki, who talked to us about question strategies. We'll be pulling from a little bit of that today. Monique, our colleague who is not here last time, she talked about a way of rethinking the theme statement. So she was talking about crafting a keynote message. So if your talk had to be boiled down to that one sentence, how do you pack that so full of punch that it's not the same as listening to somebody's whole talk, but it gives you a real good thought-provoking moment anyway. Today, we're going to look at storytelling, and next month on June 18th, Gabby will be talking to us about purpose-built programs. So our intention is that this is going to be a series that will run all year long. All right, I'm going to get started. As Nikki mentioned at the beginning, if you have a question for me, I would much prefer that you interrupt me before I get too far down the road. If I am about to answer your question, I'll put a pin in it and keep going. Otherwise, I'd rather stop and clarify right away. You can unmute, you can raise your digital hand, which means you'll pop up to the top of my screen and I will hopefully spot you. And Nikki is also volunteered to serve as my question spotter. So if you are more comfortable putting something in the chat, Nikki can raise my awareness that there's something in there, or if I miss a digital hand raise, she will feel comfortable interrupting me. And with that, let's dive into storytelling. So the first thing that I would like to do, I want to tease out the differences between these three words: explanation, narrative, and story. They're used interchangeably in a lot of the things that I read, maybe in the things that you read. You see these words kind of swapped out frequently for one another. But when I talk about storytelling, I mean something very specific. So to separate them, when I talk about explanation, I'm thinking of like a recipe. I am going to explain to you how to make my mama's toffee bar cookies, right? And when I'm done, you're going to know how to do it. I'm going to explain to you how somebody gets elected president in the United States. And when we're done, you're going to know how it works. That's an explanation. Coming closer to story, we have a narrative. This is the one I see most frequently interchanged with story, but a narrative, at least the way I think of it, this is a sequence of events. Frequently, they are in chronological order, so I think of a narrative as being story adjacent. It does illustrate something. I can still give you a narrative with great flair and panache, little fun vocal stuff I could do, but it's still not a story. A story, the way we're going to play with it today, has four key components. I think of them as the 4 Ps of storytelling. We're going to follow a person down a path through a peak experience or a transformative moment, and then we're going to get to a place. We may not get to the story's actual end, but we're going to end our story anyway. And so we get to a point I think of as the pause. So a story follows a person on their path through a moment of truth, that peak experience, to the end of that part of the journey. And what does that look like? We can chart that out in the worksheet. I'm going to have Nikki throw it in the chat. We'll have this exact same illustration. But we start off at the beginning of the story, meeting our person. And you can see 2 things are about to happen. The tension has the potential to go up and down, and we are moving forward through time. Not every story moves through time. I'm keeping it real. I'm sorry, not every story moves linearly. Today, I'm keeping it real simple. We're going to do a simple story that's just going to move in one direction through time. Now, the path. The path has rising and falling tension. Stakes go up, stakes come down. That's another defining feature of a story that does not have to exist in a narrative. A narrative can simply be first A, then B, then C, then D. Kind of like an explanation in that way. So our person is going to follow this path through the rising and falling tension. They're going to go through that peak moment, through that moment of truth. Now, the peak moment, I used to talk about history. How many of you talk about history, just out of curiosity, so I get a sense of the room? And you're welcome to raise some digital hands. Okay, and I'm guessing the others of you talk about nature. Maybe we have some folks that talk about culture. Oh, wow, Zoom raised my hand for me. That's new.
Because it is.
Let's see. Let me quickly just lower my hand because they have a new feature and that will be annoying to me. Right now I can't, where is lower my hand? There it is. There we go. Okay, now what I was starting to say is that if we're talking about history, we may know how it turns out for our person, our main character, but they don't know. For the main character of the story, this is the peak moment of, I don't know what's happening next, right? So that is our peak moment. And then as the tension falls, it gets to the place where the story is going to pause. Now, sometimes we're going to get all the way to the end of your main character's actual journey. Other times, the main character might just get to a new normal, but there's another leg of the journey ahead, and they're going to catch their breath, and then they're going to keep going, but we're going to save that for the next story. So that's why I call this piece the pause. It allows for both possibilities. Now, here's what this looks like in a 30-second format. We are going to define our person's starting normal. What's the status quo of our person's life? What's their moment of truth? And then what's the new normal? And you can do each of these in one sentence. If you craft 3 sentences that answer these questions, you really are following all the pieces of the story. You've got your story's spine. And if you have more time with your audience, you can certainly add in more detail, but you've got the 3 most important things: the starting place, the peak moment, and where your person ends up. So I want to show this to you. I want to give you an actual example of this in action. Back in the day, when I had gone from interpreting at sites to interpreting over the road, I went to work for a company, and I did 1 week and 2-week tours of France for them. And one of the people I had to talk about regularly was Louis XIV. And so here is a 30-second story based on one morsel of Louis's life, by no means his full complexity. So Louis was mostly a typical kid. He had favorite foods and favorite things he liked to do and would try to get the adults in his life to do with him. But in one way, he was very atypical. He was also learning to be a king. One night when he was 10 years old, he woke up to a group of men standing around his bed discussing killing him. This was a moment that would have been a regicide. Because of that moment, it forever altered the trajectory of Louis's life. And as a result, adult Louis moved the capital from Paris to Versailles and completely transformed the government of France with unanticipated consequences. So there's my story spine for Louis and why he moved Versailles, or why he built Versailles. Now, I want to add a couple of other bells and whistles. I could stop there. If that's all the time, you know, if let's say I have less time with my guests than needed and I have to just chunk my story down from a longer 10-minute story to maybe it's just going to be a 1-minute story, I could just give them those 3 pieces and I'm good. But let's embellish it just a little. Now, I very deliberately threw in what I think of as historian language. He lived through an attempted regicide. Most of my audience at the time are going to know what a regicide is, but it's not relatable language. So I want to think about transforming the language of my story so that modern people will have the maximum possible connection to it. So I could say he lived through an attempted coup. We read about those things. We see them on the news. Modern people are more familiar with coup than regicide. I still think I can do better. I want to connect with something that ordinary people who are never going to themselves have to worry about being the victim of a coup. But what would they worry about? They might worry about a home invasion. So at each step of this, I'm moving closer to a description in my story that modern people will go, oh, I remember seeing that on the news. And I remember when I was worried that my house might be broken into. True story. My father, 82 years old, he's not the strong man he used to be. He actively worries about home invasion because there was a little crime thing that happened in his neighborhood and he can't protect himself the way he used to, or at least that's what he believes. So modern people, that is language they might connect to. Now you're going to think about obviously the language that's going to connect with your audience, but for my audience, when I was doing Louis stories, this would work. And I could elaborate and build that out and talk about how it was different and how it was the same and all those things. But if I've only got 3 sentences, I've now created some relatability in my second sentence. Here's the last thing that I want you to think about doing, even with a micro 30-second story. I want you to consider interrupting yourself. Actually build time in your programs where you will stop talking because you're going to ask your audience to think about something from their own lives. Whether you let them speak back or whether you have them just think and imagine, you can still get some of the extra juice of interrupting yourself and having them bring their own lived experience to the front of their mind before you continue on your story. So, really good engagement questions are open-ended. They cannot have wrong answers. This is not, does anybody know when Louis was king? No, that's a knowledge check question. Open-ended. Has anybody had an experience in childhood that stuck with you till adulthood? That's open-ended. There's no way anybody can be wrong. You can't be wrong about your own life. So this is a really good benchmark for an engagement question. You are asking your listeners to remember or imagine something. You want them to either recall a memory. Can you think of a time when you were a kid when you had an irrational fear? Or when you overcame something you'd been afraid of? The other thing that you can do is ask them to imagine. So let's imagine that, you are adult Louis and you remember being a kid who had this experience. What would you do to keep your family safe? You can ask them to imagine. The thing you've got to do with either one of these strategies is you must pause long enough for them to recall the memory or create the imagining. Then they've got this thing that they have created that's meaningful for them right in the front of their brain before you continue on. And of course, the trick of this is your question needs to have them call up a memory or an imagining that's going to tie to the next piece of your story. So let's go back to our story's path and let's see how this comes together. Where can you put engagement questions? Really in front of any piece of this. You can lead off. What are some things you remember from childhood? It can be that broad, or you can be a little more targeted. What is your favorite memory from childhood? Do you remember what it was like to be 10 years old? Any 10-year-olds in your life? What do 10-year-olds do these days, right? Something to build up a humanizing picture of 10-year-olds, because then I'm about to talk about a 10-year-old king, and people don't relate so much to kingness. So I want them relating to tennishness. Did you have a childhood fear that stuck with you into adulthood is going to be the lead in to the story about Louis waking up in bed, because clearly that stuck with him to childhood. And of course, he had all the resources of a king available to him. But even ordinary people, scared of dogs, take a dog desensitization or work at a dog rescue, something to do, people do all kinds of things to overcome their childhood fears. See if you can get them to recollect a triumph. You can also do it right before the end. What would you do to protect your family from something that terrified you as a child? Maybe you put an electric fence around your yard because you're still afraid of dogs. And you know that even well-trained dogs can have bad moments, right? So get people thinking about just modern person stuff, and then you tie it to what comes next. What you're doing, you're calling up a memory, so they're calling up something that matters, and then you're helping them bridge from what's familiar to what is unfamiliar. So there's a lot that we're packing in here, but at the end of the day, it still comes back to that very simple 3-sentence story. Louis was mostly a typical kid who, except he was also learning to be king. One night when he was 10, this awful thing happened. And as a result, he tried to protect his family by twisting the government of France, and it had unintended consequences. That's the spine. So, Nikki, would you be so kind and pop that PDF into the chat if you've not done so already? While she's doing that, that's going to have a quick summary of the things that I talked about, because I want you to have that in front of you. I know I went somewhat quickly. Do you have any questions about any of this before I invite you to create your own micro story and try to either tinker with the language or come up with a question, or both if you have time. But are there any questions? Does it seem possible that you could come up with something and put these bells and whistles on? It seem at least straightforward enough. Yeah, Nikki?
One of the things I was just thinking about is I talk mostly about nature. Sometimes I talk about culture or history, but mostly it's about nature. That main character could actually be a plant, an animal, so it doesn't have to be human either.
100%. 100%. Thank you. And I meant to actually go into that. Whether you are talking about nature or history or culture, you can either find a person who is out in the natural world doing something with the natural world. Humans relate well to humans. This works well with culture, with dance, with art, with whatever cultural artifacts you might be talking about. Who is the person that you can follow? Or, particularly in the case of nature, I had a student do this beautifully. She had a bird. She was trying to incentivize behavior change and putting bird houses in backyards to help with, it was some kind of blue, it wasn't a bluebird, but it was a blue bird in her region that was losing its habitat. And she wanted people to put these free bird houses out there. She introduced us to like Betty the bird and had the cutest picture of Betty. And she was kind of looking at us with a little cocked head. Immediately, we started telling ourselves stories about Betty. That picture showing us Betty with the little head cock and the funny little face. And suddenly she was telling real things about these birds. And periodically she'd come back and give us a little more of Betty's story. So this works in all the avenues. Thank you, Nikki. All right. So if you have grabbed down that, oh my gosh, words, PDF, take a couple minutes, see if you can come up with a 30-second story for yourself based on something you talk about now, but maybe you don't talk about it in story form. Or you have a long story, you want to boil it down to 3 key sentences. And then try the 2 bells and whistles. Find a bit of language and a question. I'll give it just a few minutes, and then we're going to pop you into breakout rooms so that you can talk with one another, share your creations, and then we'll come back and we'll do a final debrief. Dimitra.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Hi, Christine. I love the way you explain things and mingle everything together. And actually, to be honest, I would like to mention that nowadays people are really tired of the standard guiding that people used to do before, especially after COVID. People are very different now. They need something different. They need something more a better way and a much easier way to understand things. And this is very wonderful what you are explaining to us now, and especially combining information about the place with it might be poetry, it might be theater, it might be something to do with any art. It makes everything more interesting. It brings people down to nowadays life, and they understand things much better. You're absolutely right about it.
Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely agree. The good news is those of us who were trained in the old way of guiding, we probably have a lot of information in our heads. So that's a huge leg up. And now we just need to learn to repackage it in the kinds of bites modern audiences want.
Absolutely. You remind me when
Yeah.
I go through the mountains, our villages, etc., that I combine people which have been important people, well-known people, have been accommodated in a certain village, and also something which was created also for them, like a cocktail, for example. So it really makes it more interesting. Or a poet who has been accommodated there, and I refer to the poem as well. So yes, I find it really very useful, much more appealing nowadays.
Yeah. Thank you. Here is what I would like to do. I want to be sensitive to time. You know, we try to keep these at 45 minutes, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And I still want to give you time in breakout rooms. So I'm going to have Nikki pop you all into breakouts. You can share your creation with one another. Sometimes it's nice to be able to share your creation and get the hive mind without the person teaching the session being kind of hovering over you. So I want you to have your breakout time. Share your creations. If you're stuck on something, ask your partner, you'll be in duos and trios, I think. And then we're going to bring you back. So it's probably just going to be about 6-7 minutes in the breakout rooms. These are supposed to be 30-second stories, with or without a question. And then we're going to come back and we will have a share so that, you know, a conversation, a debrief, so that you can be released if you need to go at the 45-minute mark. And then we are welcome to stay or happy to stay till the top of the hour to keep the conversation going. So, Nikki, can you pop everybody into breakouts?
We are ready. I'm going to open up those rooms, and then when we're ready to close the rooms, there will be a short message that says the rooms are closing, and then it'll tell you how much time you still have. All right, everybody's in rooms. What I did was there were a few people who've been very quiet, no kind of interaction. I put them in a room. Because I didn't want a person who was active with somebody who was totally inactive, and all those really inactive people actually left when you talked about breakout rooms. So everybody in a room has already either shown their face or asked a question or something like this. So so they're not going into a dud room. Hopefully.
Excellent. It's interesting from this side because I'm not a host. Oh, I am a co-host, so I can't see them in. It looks like they've left the meeting totally. I'm like, oh my God, did everybody log out? I knew some
No,
would.
no, we have 6
So I'm
people who have
glad that
been
they've done a
active.
breakout.
That they've had their video on and they've been nodding and asking questions, or you know, at least participating. So all 6 of those, and those are the people you're going to make you know, those are the people who are going to
Yeah.
enjoy it. They're already the ones are very engaged. So those are the people we want
Yeah.
anyway. The nice part is it allows us to take out you know, our hosts, which I'm guessing, you know, Gabby, your husband supposedly signed in as probably you and another computer, I'm assuming. So
No, it's actually here, but
he's actually there. Oh, fantastic.
yeah.
Hello,
Um,
Johnny.
How do I pronounce your name? Genevieve? Am I okay? My French
I
class was a
shall
long
always call you Genevieve. That is you now. Jean-Yves.
John
Voilà.
B. Okay,
Jean-Yves, voilà.
Johnny.
But he says
Oh,
like yeah, he feels like what, you to be shy to go with the they all speaking
Yeah.
well.
I'm gonna give him like, I
I
think
can pop you into a group if you'd like.
I'm gonna give him until the 40 minutes, you know, past the hour, and then we can bring him back.
Okay,
And that
Gabby,
gives
do
us-
you
it
know?
just-
Gabby, do you know how long your you know, after I hit close rooms, do you know how long your breakout room takes to close? Default is like 30 seconds.
I think it's good question now. I don't remember. 30 seconds, I guess.
Okay, it'll also say when I break the rooms.
Yeah, because maybe give them a little bit of send them a message before you close them just in case. Because I don't remember last time. I think I might change it into immediately.
Sure, sure. And we can't change it while it's going on, so.
Cool.
But I will send them a message that says 1 more minute or something like that. And then they have to get extra time. That's exciting.
I'm just gonna go
Yeah.
very quick to pee and come back.
You have 2
Just-
minutes.
Because I'm listening and
Go.
And then what I do with this, Kristin, is Gabby will send me the link to this recording. I'll take it and edit out this blank stuff at the end or the middle. And then I post it on our YouTube channel, but I put it as unassigned right now or unlisted right now. That means people can find it if we have a link, but otherwise we're going to kind of keep that quiet. And if somebody wants to rewatch it or somebody asks if they can watch it, we'll go ahead and allow that, but we don't publicly send it out yet. Monique had some ideas of making shorts and things like that out of them. So until we've resolved that, I'm going to keep it. I keep it unlisted, but we can send it out if somebody asks you, "Hey, I meant to be there and I couldn't." We can share it. So it is 10:39. Do you want me to do 1 more minute?
Yeah, let's wait till the actual 40 and then. Oh, wait, did she say it takes a minute to close? I wasn't listening.
It might
Sorry.
take a minute to close. I have mine set at 1 minute, but that's not the default.
Yeah, we'll give it to the 40.
Okay.
That's good to know. Viola and Demetria are the ones from WFTGA.
Right.
And they might, oh, balloons. They they might be interested in looking at some of the other ones just to get a sense. All right. Let's bring them back. Why am I dinging? Oh, you're giving them a 1 minute. I totally missed this. That's fine.
No, that's okay. She has it as breakout rooms closing in 60 seconds. So now we're
Okay.
agreed.
Perfect.
I let them know that they had 1 more minute, and that's what the breakout rooms is offering. So of course, some people come back sooner than others.
Yeah. Oh, this is good. These were good. I don't know Maritza, but I know everybody, and I didn't know Demetra, but I know everybody else. Taylor was one of my students. She actually did this work with manatees and is doing this work with manatees, but she actually is one of the people who took these principles and then she had a community meeting where she's advocating for a manatee safe zone in Florida, which would require some laws change and voter behavior be different. So she used interpretive tools and interpretive storytelling in that venue, which was really cool. Yeah. Yeah, she's lovely.
bye.
And she's back. Welcome back. I would really love to hear from you. I mean, really, I'm going to kick it open. I would love to hear if there's anything that you would like to share about working with this format, this 30-second spine, the language, the question. How was that? Or would anybody like to read their creation to the room? Brave souls. Oh, I see Rita and Dimitra are both unmuted. Go for it, Dimitra.
Sorry, what do you mean to read the creation? What we have presented or what the other person?
Yes. If you created a story, if you had time and it worked for you and you came up with a story, I'd love to hear what you wrote. Rita, I see you're unmuted as well. Do you have a creation? Or you just forgot to
No,
unmute?
but sort of actually as an academic, what this does is force me to talk less and distill it down to its essentials. So and the story is more powerful, I think, when you do that. So
I would agree. I like all the words all the time. I can talk your ear off about anything I'm excited about, but when I am forced to be brief, I tell my students, you have to get ruthless with your words. You have to cut your favorite bits if it doesn't belong on your spine. And it's hard, but it really makes you understand where's the power in this narrative? Where's the power in this story? If I'm turning it into a story. I won't make anybody read. Is there any other thought, any other anything? Oh, yeah, Viola.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find my electronic hand, so here I am with my real one. I was
I see
actually
it.
in the room with Rita, and her story was really, really powerful because, as she said, she stripped it back to the basics. It was just a girl and a society around her. We didn't have any names or time frames and so on. And we actually just talked about also when was the moment of truth, how long did it last, and looking at it from different perspectives, and then a really open ending as well. So I guess what I'm saying is it was very, very powerful because it was so basic and so all encompassing. Yeah, it could be valid anywhere, really.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Gabby, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, I created my little story just because Jean-Yves was here. And then I'm like, I have a little story.
You
But
want to share?
yeah, why
Oh, say
not?
what you were going to say.
Yes, I can share. I mean, really, what I really like is that when you get used to the questions like that, you can really organize your thoughts in a way that it can be like fluid. Like you said, it's not like you get lost with all the different things that you're thinking. So it helped me to do that. So I was thinking of like Jean-Yves, let's call no, let's say Jean-Yves Martin. It's another Jean-Yves, one we don't know. That and then I could think, with your question. So it's a French teacher from Brittany, that I want to talk about that. And he started to study IT and economics at the university, thinking about a career in business. But then his passion was for French literature, and he really wanted to make a more personal impact, which it makes him switch a little bit the path and become a high school teacher. That sounds familiar? No? Okay. So and then I was just thinking about like that moment of truth is
Mhm.
is thinking about Joy reading a poem by, I don't know, Victor Hugo's poem to a student and transforming Maritza. I'm just gonna say whatever names are. Maritza was the student, and transform Maritza into thinking more about literature, and that helped to improve her confidence. And so that new normal, the moment of truth, okay, what is the new normal? Is that Jean-Yves used literature to connect with each student's unique experiences, and he started a book club to encourage students to explore and discuss literature. So as Maritza, she really enjoyed all of these things, and she found a new interest and become a student of literature, specialized literature. And then I think that I will ask, so you see, I'm like trying to put it together, but it helps a lot. And then if I think about a question, I would say, have you ever had a teacher or a moment in class that it will change the way that you saw a subject, or that teacher that make you change your life study path, you know, and yeah, a little bit like that, but at least it gave me a little bit of the structure that what you were saying.
Well, and just by thank you for talking us through that. And one of the things that I just want to kind of highlight, this is an iterative process. When you talked through your story the first time, you gave us a quick little outline of Jean-Yves' path, but then you went back to that moment of truth and you started building that out. What is this moment? And it kind of changed the second end of that path. So, you know, I only gave you a very brief period of time to do this today. It is one of those things that the more you play with it, you start to really hone in on the moment, you start to hone in on the language, you will play with your question until you find just the right thing that helps your listeners establish the connections that, you know, are in line with your goals potentially and that are meaningful for them. And I want to be sensitive to time. Like I said, Gabby and Nikki and I will hang out until the top of the hour, but I just want to give you a just super quick recap. You have the PDFs, those are yours to keep and to use. And, you know, please, as I always tell anybody who comes to any of my classes, I love this stuff. You may always consider me a thought partner and reach out and with questions even after this ends. But you start with your subject. You find your person, whether that person is a human, an animal, a plant. I had a student one time pick a gargoyle, like it was, I don't even know if it was a real gargoyle, but it was an architectural embellishment at a very old university because he was going to cover 300 years of history. He picked the gargoyle that had been around to see the. So find your person, figure out your arc. That is where you're going to define your path. That's where you're going to find that peak moment, and you're going to decide where you are pausing story. Again, because sometimes you're on a different day of tour or at a different stop on a walking tour. So find your pause. You're using, where can you turn regicide into something a modern human being will relate to? And I'm still playing with home invasion. Home invasion still isn't quite right, but it's much closer to a modern person's frame of reference than regicide. And finally, be ready to interrupt yourself. Ask your audience a question somewhere. You don't have to ask them a question before every single sentence in a 3-sentence story, but find one moment where you're going to ask them to think about their own selves, their own lives, how they would do, and then go on in your story. And that is it. The upcoming clinic in June 18th, is with Gabby doing purpose-built programs, talking about the importance of keeping purpose and being honest with ourselves about our purpose, doing what we do. So I'm going to take this down. I am going to stop talking. I'm going to be happy to answer or just facilitate discussion amongst y'all. If you are hanging out, I'm hanging out until the top of the hour. Anybody have any thoughts, observations, anythings? If not,
Gabby had
I
a
can say-
fantastic question in the chat. Have you ever had a teacher or moment in class that changed the way you saw a subject?
Me personally, or that was her question for her? for her talk. Gabby, which was that? Was that directed to me or was that your question for your talk?
I think I wanted to like, now that Nikki asked, like to ask everybody, perhaps that moment that it makes you, oh, I'm going to do interpretation, or I'm going to change the way I see history or my nature class because of someone. It could be a teacher, or it could be someone that inspired you to become an interpreter and a storyteller. We can start with you, Chris.
I will tell you the moment I absolutely remember. It was a moment that pivoted my career, both as a storyteller and as an interpreter, because I was doing this work and I was working at a historic site. I was one of the people dressing in the costumes and talking about how they did things in ye olden days. And there was a group of teenagers. They were all gathered together. They were from the foster system in my town in Sacramento, Greater Sacramento County. And these kids did not want to listen to the talks. They came every year. What they wanted was to get together with their friends who they only got to see on these field trips. So not only am I having to compete with the desire of teenagers to hang out with their friends, but I'm also having to, there was a group of 3 boys, and teenage boys at the time, that was not my sweet spot for understanding how to relate to them. But I used the tools of interpretation. Honestly, the first thing I did was I used a little humor. They came around, they at least paused long enough to say, hey, what are you doing here? I was actually, between visitors, I was weaving a basket, and I took the basket and I plunged it into water because you have to keep the reed wet. And I said, I'm underwater basket weaving, which, if you're not familiar with that American idiom, means I'm doing something totally useless when you say that in real life. I happen to literally be doing underwater basket weaving. They laughed. They started asking questions. And that was one of the moments when I realized if I could get people to ask me questions instead of me hitting them with information, I was far more likely to deliver a story morsel, a piece of data, a demo that they were actually interested in, rather than throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick and just hitting them with my info. These kids actually stayed with me, talking to me for like 15, 20 minutes. This was unheard of in my experience for a group of these kids to stay and listen. And they kept asking questions. They were trying all the things. So first humor, and then really recognizing the power of getting my audience to ask questions. What about anybody else in the room? That's my story. Demetra?
Yes, actually, I was talking about snakes, about Cyprus, recently with a group, and they just said, "Oh, are there still snakes on this island?" Yes, I said, but not to worry, they never attack British people. So immediately they laughed. You know, definitely humor helps a lot. And then I get into the subject, seriously, I explain things. Yeah, it's the best way, to make people feeling comfortable. And as you said, just like the students who came to you posing questions, immediately they feel comfortable and they come closer to us. And first of all, they listen and then they ask also questions. Yeah. Yeah, I like the way you presented the things, Kristin. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for being here. And yeah, humor softens everything. It gets people to drop their armor at least a little bit. It softens the heart. It wakes up the brain. If you're good at using humor, it is such a wonderful tool. Anybody else? Maritza, Juan, Viola, was that little twitch you getting ready to say something?
Well, I was actually trying to say goodbye and thank you. My time is a little bit limited, but okay. But I give you a quick story. I don't know whether it made me become an interpreter, but it certainly was kind of a moment of truth and life changing. I grew up in East Germany, and at school, and there was always an official line, and that's a truth, one truth. I think that's where I'm going, one truth. And one of the teachers actually said, whatever you hear, whatever source it might come from, always ask yourself, who's actually telling you what they are telling you and why are they telling you it? And it's also, kind of look at the stories. There's definitely at least 2 sides to every story. And that was a kind of wake-up call to me, whatever we hear, what we find, and our guests come with their own perceptions of life, and we have our own perceptions as well, and weaving that together and learning from each other and also questioning each other is just so powerful. And I think it has been a guiding light through my life as well. Yeah, this is a good story, but there's more to that story, this one story I've just heard.
And you bring something up too, about this. Yeah, I think of it as co-creating with our visitors. If we can get them, I talked about putting that question in there. If you've created enough comfort with your people, or you've devised a really good, like, low stakes question that they won't be embarrassed to answer out loud, if you can get people to answer out loud, listen to the language they use, listen to the things that they contribute. Because if you can weave that language in, if you can weave their metaphors in, if it's appropriate to do so, if it actually matches your story, you are helping them have opportunities to see those relationships. You're also bringing them in as a co-creator of the experience you are delivering. And that's powerful for getting people to continue to be interested, engaged, open-hearted, curious, feeling like there's actually a payoff for talking out loud with this guide. I will answer when she asks me a question, because she's listening. Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody else? Edan, Taylor, Jean-Yves, I don't want to ignore you just because I know that you are here on behalf of All Sense. Anybody else? Well, I will thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead, Gabby.
I just said it's very hard. Like, sometimes I try to be quiet too, but it's so hard sometimes. I really like it. It's very nice. It really, when I said it really helps me to put my mind in a like in order. It's really good to do this, and I like the idea of the question at the end. I think it's very powerful because that it will engage and find an opportunity for the visitors to interact. But the other thing, and I remember what Nikki was saying, I think with what is hard sometimes is to wait for the answers, right? We know that the answers, yeah, they don't come fast sometimes, and then we want to immediately answer, but that waiting time, I remember that somebody said, if it's worth to ask, it's worth to wait, and to stay quiet for a bit and wait for that great answer that it will take a bit of time to process. And I think it is I know that everybody's like processing so many things, but I know that it's working, because that is a very powerful tool, how to structure a story, because sometimes we think it's just to tell a story, but no, there is an actual structure, and I really like that, Kristin.
Like Michelangelo said, I'm removing everything. When he sculpted, he was removing everything that wasn't the statue. When you are crafting a story, it really is an art form. There is a wonderful woman, her name is Brenda Wong Aoki. I'd learned about her in college. I recently ran across some old college papers. I'm like, oh, wow. You listen to her words, you listen to these people who study the art of story, and it is the process of removing every word that isn't story, that isn't the spine, that isn't the core. And it's beautiful when it's done. So thank you all so much. We are at the top of the hour. I hope to see you at future skills clinics or out in the world, or just to hear from you. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day and tell good stories.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.